Guys, when we're celebrities, can Onog have like his own brand of eggnog?
Okay.
That's like O, but the O is an egg. It's like...
Okay, that part made it though. Just an emoji of an egg and then nog, but it's nog, but it's an egg.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
See, right
If this wasn't Dr. Pepper, I would have just splashed it in your face.
I was literally
Hey travelers, welcome to the Copperfoxinn. My name is Mercy, the Tiefling Wizard, and here today as always is...
Thomas the Human Bard.
Onog, the half-orc barbarian.
And Bean, the Rock Gnome Rogue.
Yeah, and we're excited to talk about some cool homebrew stuff that we've got going on today. As always, thank you so much to the community, and especially the creators of everything that we're going to be reviewing today. We have a lot of fun with it, we get a lot of enjoyment, and we hope that all of you guys do too.
And if you ever want to look more into what we talk about today, the links are all in the description.
So I'll start us off today with a wondrous item.
Wait, is this the magic item of the week?
Oh, it's the magic item of the week.
Oh, I thought
Thank you.
we were going to get through it without that.
No.
I must.
One day
Bard's
we'll
looking out
have
for us.
one day we'll have some super fans that will like send in all of their jingles and we could play a different jingle every time.
Yeah, write us a jingle. We won't pay for it.
No.
No, we'll use it.
Over our dead bodies.
But even if it's just the sound of your voice humming a jingle, we will use it.
We're very small.
Voice-
We have no money.
Voice recordings of just our fans each introducing the show at the start of the show instead of us. They just do it themselves so that we don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
I think eventually we'll just shift into our fans doing the whole show.
You say
Just
That's
sit back
the
and relax.
ideal situation.
You say that, Thomas, and you're saying it's not us doing it. If it's fans submitting the intro for the show, it would just still be us submitting the intro for our show.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Rough.
Yeah, if you want to submit anything to the show, you can email us at thecopperfoxinn@gmail.com.
No periods, no spaces.
No,
Straightforward.
we got it.
There is an @ sign, though.
Nice.
Yeah, one @ sign and one dot because of the .com.
Because of the .com.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's your magic item?
My magic item is the purse piglet. So I found this on Reddit from user Griff-Mac. You can also find his work under Griffin's Saddlebag. You can find him on Instagram where he posts some of his work as well. We'll have the link in the description. He makes a lot of great stuff. So this is the purse piglet. It is a wondrous item and it's adorable. I'll just read the description here. This ceramic piglet figurine is glazed with a friendly pink coating that's soft to the touch and has a hole in the top that's stoppered with a cork. When you drop a coin in the piglet and stopper it again, the figurine springs to life. If you place a coin inside it to animate the pig, it imprints on you and considers you its owner.
Oh boy.
The owner can hold and gently shake the piglet, causing it to oink happily and know how much money is inside of it.
I'm so happy.
It's so sweet. Once alive, the piglet will happily eat any coin handed to it, storing it inside, and will spit out exact change when you ask it, even converting them into larger or smaller denominations.
Oh, that's handy.
Mm-hmm.
That's an ability most parties somehow have, but this is a good excuse.
That's how everyone has it.
It's where you go, wait a minute, we couldn't always do that.
But wait a minute. I've already broken this. What if you've only got copper pieces and you can slowly turn them to gold? Not about gold pieces, but I mean the gold itself to use for spells. Yes. Ha ha ha.
I mean, like, you could always
The
just do that, like,
Transfiguration Wizard.
at a bank. You know, like, you don't need a pig.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, in the wild, you can just, like, transmute copper to gold at will.
As the saying goes, no
Yeah.
pig in the wild.
Pretty cool.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just a faster way to do something that you could, like, always have done.
Definitely.
It's also a cuter way to do it.
It's very important, yeah.
Mhm. All right, let's
Is
see.
it, like, lawful evil? Like, what's its alignment?
Well, let's keep going here.
I like that was
Okay.
your assumption.
The figurine can hold only coins and will spit or sneeze out anything else you place inside of it. I love that it just goes, achoo, and just shoots those gems out. It's like, no, gross, which is adorable. The piglet squeals with glee and prances about excitedly when you deposit or feed it coins. The pig can eat up to 100 or 1,000 coins of any denomination every hour it spends eating them. It will eat electrum pieces with less enthusiasm.
That's darn right.
That's just such a good little, like, meta thing to
Just
throw in
because
there.
everyone hates
'Cause they're
Electrum.
dumb. Yeah, it's
the
hilarious.
worst coin.
We did just have a guy, like, essentially teleport into our campaign from a different world, and he, like, only has Electrum coins, and we're all just like, what even, is this money? And he's like, yeah, and we're all just like, no.
It's like a post I saw the other day where it's like, if somebody came from an alternate universe, their memes would be ever so slightly different. And it would just be like one word off. It would just be like one word off and slightly wrong. So they come in and they're like, oh, it's that fellow. Hello there. And it's like the frog on the unicycle. Like, that's not what you say.
That's not how you say it.
Like, I mean, this is an old one, but instead of like, that really rustles my jimmies, you're just like, that really...
Jostles my
Russells.
And everyone, that's the thing, is that's how you can tell if someone's from an alternate dimension, is if they're just a little wrong, everyone is immediately,
this is the 49-cent store, how good can it be?
Oh, I almost dropped my hot pocket. No, wait, that's wrong.
That's not right. That's not right.
That's how you gotta test people. You start to say a vine, and then you see how they finish it.
And if they say it wrong, you are legally allowed to kill that person.
Because they don't exist.
They're not a real person. No one will know.
Now, on that note, though, and speaking of killing someone in an alternate reality, to bring this back to D&D, in the Curse of Strahd...
Why would you do that?
We don't talk about D&D here.
In the Curse of Strahd, one of the flavor choices they made on purpose is that a lot of the denominations of money lying around are Electrum, because it's just something that normal D&D campaigns never really use, and then you go to this random mystical dark place that's separated from all of reality, and there's these weird 50-cent pieces.
Instead of dollars, everyone uses 50-cent coins, and it's very weird.
I will say, like, when I worked at Denny's, there would always be old people that would pay with, like, silver dollars or 50-cent pieces, and it was the worst thing. I mean...
You have nowhere to put it.
You have to put those with the dollars.
Yeah, because it doesn't fit in the tray, but you're not allowed to keep money outside of the drawer of the register, and it's... I mean, they're always pleasing because they're, like, big and silver pieces.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're, like...
shiny.
Money. You know, it feels like money, but it's just... Anyway, so pigs.
Yeah, so to keep going with this item, so I'm just gonna kind of go through a summary of it. So it's very loyal. It'll essentially follow your commands, but this is not a combat companion situation. It's got like 5 hit points. So it'll just walk beside you or the nearest ally, which I think is so good. Like, I love that it just trots along next to you for purely aesthetic reasons. It'll just vanish into a pocket dimension if it gets too far away from you, and you can summon it back with the phrase, "Come home, little piggy," as a bonus action. And you can tell it to return to its pocket dimension by saying, "Go to market, little piggy." So just a joke. And I love this little tidbit.
That's not what that means. Piggies don't go to market and come
it's fine.
back.
It's fine. You can just summon it back.
Jiggity jig.
I love this little bit that when you ask for 10% or more of its total stockpile, it looks disappointed before it gives you the money.
If you're making a huge withdrawal, it's just
like
you're making a run on the piggy bank.
I do need to note, though, it does have the worst description of death I've ever read.
I don't want to read that part.
Yeah, read it for us.
Yeah, so I was about to read this part. If the pig's owner dies, the distraught pig empties itself of all coins, returning to its inanimate ceramic form atop of whatever coins were inside of it.
No. I didn't mean that one. How dare you? I meant, if the piglet is slain, it cries out and shatters into hundreds of tiny ceramic pieces. But it screams first. Like rules as written, it must scream.
Oh gosh. And it has 5 hit points and 10 AC, so it will die.
I mean, you should just not have it with you if you're in combat. You should just say, "Go to market, little
But this
piggy."
is my emotional support piggy bank.
Oh my gosh.
That I just watched shatter and scream into a million pieces.
I'm imagining you go to a blacksmith and you're like, "I need some very special custom armor." And they're like, "Why?" And then you put your piggy bank down and you're like, "You must protect him."
That's like a weird thing. Side note, interestingly, in D&D, there are like rules for pet armor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, barding.
Yeah, but that's like a thing that almost never comes up, but is technically in there. It's a weird thing.
It's in the equipment section of the player's handbook, and it's just like, you can get whatever armor for whatever animal you've got. It just costs 10 times as much and will weigh either half as much or twice as much, depending on the size of the creature.
So it essentially, it follows bag of holding rules as far as, like, if you put a bag of holding inside another bag of holding, the same thing happens if you put this inside a bag of holding.
Oh, no!
So Don't
I
do
thought you were
that.
gonna say if you put this inside of another piggy bank.
Also,
Feeding a piggy bank to another piggy bank.
What eldritch horror have you guys created?
It's like outside of Las Vegas where they feed them the like buffet leftovers, which are mostly like pork based, and you're like, oh no, what horrible cycle.
Rules as written, it would sneeze out the other piggy
Oh,
bank.
that's fair. That you are right.
Also, pigs are just cannibals.
Yeah.
It's fine. But yeah,
This
so
went from not cute.
that is the way to permanently destroy it, is to put it in a bag of holding.
Very good.
So don't do that. And there's some cute flavor text on here that I would encourage you to read. So I love this. I kind of feel like this should be on it. Like, it reminds me of the Xanathar's common item list.
Where it's just something that makes your life easier.
Well, although this is a little bit better than a
Yeah.
lot of those.
I will also throw it out. I mean, they were kind of having this problem in Critical Role, but pets are always such a fun part of a campaign, but they're so complicated. If you're doing it properly, like either the pet isn't fun or it's so complicated because you have to train it, you have to raise it, you have to deal with like, oh crap, now we're here and what do I do with my eagle? Or what? But this is a great thing because it would give you the same fulfillment as having a little pet, but it doesn't have all the same problems. You can just be like, okay, go away. I mean, it's sort of like a niffler. Like a niffler.
Yeah.
I guess you get the same kind of thing out of having a familiar, but not everyone's a wizard. So it's just a fun...
Sounds like a personal problem.
And your familiar can't hold 10,000 gold pieces.
Yeah, but...
Unless it's a niffler.
But I just think it's fun because it is not... You're not just getting a robot pet. You are getting like a practical robot pet. And
Something that feels, wants, and screams when it dies.
Well, one thing that occurred to me on this one is it said that it can eat 1,000 coins for every hour that it has, but I don't think it had a limit.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it has an upper limit.
No, it doesn't have a limit for how
it
many
just
coins
takes it a
can
long
eat.
time to eat.
It just takes a long time, but this totally solves the problem where I feel like all the time in D&D you're like, we found the treasure room! We're taking it all back! And then the DM goes, how you carrying all that? And then you're like, oh...
Guys...
But we're just gonna take a long
That
rest
used to
and let
be.
that piggy chomp away.
But that's, you imagine, you like go in, you've defeated the dragon, it has a horde, and then you're like, what do we do? And then someone's like, come here, little piggy, and it appears and it's like, and it just looks out.
It gets at hard eyes.
Yes, it like looks out at the sea of coins, and you're like,
It Scrooge McDucks its way in.
Yeah.
There. The piggy just
Boom.
walks up and dives right in.
and you're just like, it's okay.
It would be such a happy boy.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it just like goes
Wait.
and just...
Remind me again how it gives you the coins back when you ask for them?
It spits them out.
burps them up.
What if I was like, hey piggy, I need 10,000 gold coins? Is the piggy just like...
I also, it does specify that when it's...
Like a machine gun.
Projectile, how fast do they come out of the
Okay.
pig?
It does specify that when they come out of its mouth, they are dry. It actually makes that specification.
That's
So
fine.
they're
No,
not slobbery.
No, that's fine. I just meant the horrible like look of you squeezing a pig to have all the money come out of it, and it's just piles of gold shooting out of its
See,
mouth.
I don't think you have to wring them out of its body.
But it will make it come out faster.
It's ceramic.
No, it won't.
I think it's up to discretion. I personally think it would be kind of cute if it pooped the coins out.
Oh.
That's just me.
Then it could maybe like do that thing where it can like jetpack itself around by shooting a bunch of coins out real
Oh my
fast.
gosh.
Yeah.
These are the things that come out. No,
It actually, in the flavor text, it has somebody getting coins out of the piggy, and it says it's like one hand reaches down to softly pat it on the head while it just like spits the other, like the coins into your hand.
Very good. But you do bring up a good point that in D&D like early editions, it was a big part of the game where because gold directly related to experience points and levels,
Right.
how you got treasure places mattered a lot, which is one of the reasons why Tensor's floating disc, the spell, like exists. Because Tensor's floating disc is this like really weird spell that basically says like you have a magical wheelbarrow that floats with you, but it's useless. It can just carry some stuff, but not even well. And it was
Like
literally
maybe
for,
someone could stand on it.
yeah, but it was literally for piling a bunch of bags of gold on it so your party could walk back to town unhindered. Because you needed to get the gold back to level up.
I mean, like, it's like in real life when none of your friends have a truck and you, like, really need to move a couch or something and you're like, oh, it's just so complicated.
Uh-huh.
But
The moment you have a magical truck, you can summon right behind you.
That's the thing is like all those spells seem stupid until the moment that you need them, and then you're like, oh, we really need to carry this heavy thing.
This is a very good spell for this specific instance. Now, though, D&D has a lot of like other ways that you can handle that same problem, and has a lot of magical items that essentially do the same things, or DMs just handle the rules where they go, I don't know, you collect it all, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's up to your table and how like strict you are with things like carrying capacity and how long actions take, that kind of stuff.
Well, in earlier editions, like in 3.5 and even the earliest editions, those things were stuff that you kind of cared about. I mean, honestly, in the earliest editions, you didn't necessarily have to carry the gold anywhere. You won when you defeated the dragon, and then there was gold, and you didn't necessarily always played out to the end. I mean, that's not always true. It depended on your campaign, of course. But I'm talking like super OG stuff.
Yeah, like I had mentioned, AD&D, like your leveling up was only directly related to two things: the amount of monsters you killed and the amount of gold you collected.
Yep.
If you wanted to have your wizard go from level 2 to level 3, you either needed to murder many things or achieve many gold.
And the thing is, in 5th edition, and some people like this and some people don't, and what's nice about 5th edition is you can take the campaign as far as you want in either direction, but it's way more about the world that you make and the stories that you're telling and all that kind of stuff. And so it's not, in my opinion, it isn't necessarily wrong for a DM to just say, yeah, you guys get the gold. Maybe if it's a truly ginormous dragon's horde, you might
start doing some logistics.
But at a certain point, just saying, yeah, you guys have it, let's just worry about the story and the world. That's a little bit more what 5th edition is about.
Well, and I don't think there's anything wrong with treating like a massive horde that you find either as almost like the secret mine that you now know about, where it's like you just periodically go and get more wealth and you just live super rich for the rest of your life.
In original Dungeons & Dragons, like the 1st and 2nd edition, there was a big deal about hiring people to go get gold for you from places you'd cleared out. Like you would pay money for local like random NPCs, and they would work for you for like a daily rate to just go truck gold out of a dragon's horde in their backpack.
So I see a flaw
in this business model. You had to like manage it though. That was like part of the game.
All right, let's move on. Thomas, what have you brought?
Okay. So what I brought today is actually it's not as silly as what we normally cover, and it is a different way to think about rules. So it is from Reddit, from r/Unearthed Arcana, and it is from the user Ayana, Aeyana. So let me pull it up here. This is a table. Well, sort of a table, but it is a rules variant for undead proficiencies. So I'll read you the paragraph. Some undead retain traits they knew in life upon being reanimated. At your DM's discretion, roll 1d12 and consult the undead class table to determine what class an undead was in life. An undead's former class grants it certain proficiencies. So, instead of the skeleton that you're fighting being a Monster Manual skeleton, this may be the skeleton of an ancient warrior, and so it would have certain things that set it apart from other skeletons. So in that case, maybe it's a fighter. It was a fighter in life, and it was an adventurer that came to the dungeon before you and has died, and on the place where they died, their bones now sit, and they've been reanimated by dark magic to fight anyone who comes into the dungeon. So that fighter, as a bonus to the normal skeleton traits in the Monster Manual, would also have light armor proficiency, medium armor proficiency, shield proficiency, and simple and martial weapon proficiencies. So instead of only being limited to what the Monster Manual says a skeleton can or cannot wear or wield, it now can pretty much do anything a fighter can. One of the most interesting ones for me is rogue skeletons being proficient in thieves' tools. So if you lock yourselves in a closet to stay away from the zombies, and one of them was a rogue in life, he just like starts picking the lock.
That's so spooky.
Never let us in.
Let us in. Or the other one, which was sorcerers and wizards and warlocks, I guess. Sorcerers, wizards, and warlocks, which would have proficiency in wands, which means skeletons that be casting spells at you.
Yeah.
Which there are monsters that are undead that can cast spells, but that's a very different concept than just saying...
You go into a tomb.
I feel like this skeleton, as the DM, I feel like he was an adventurer in life. He was a wizard, and I'm going to give him a little bit of flavor of that. So he's, instead of wearing like ragged armor and a rusty sword, this skeleton has a blue tattered robe on and wields a wand and keeps casting fireball at you out of his wand.
I feel like that's a great starting place to sort of make your own homebrewed bosses for your party to fight.
Yeah.
To just think about, like, okay, so they're going into this tomb where this ancient hero was buried to find this item, and like maybe they have to like prove their worth by fighting his army and then him at the end, and like you don't have to do exactly what it says here, but it's a great place to get ideas.
Definitely.
I remember in one of my past campaigns, it was a kind of like an arena fight kind of campaign where most of it centered around people doing feats of strength or like one-on-one combat or team combat with each other, and the party eventually ran into the arena champions. And the arena had very specific rules where you could bring any items with you into the arena that you wanted, but you couldn't bring other people, but you could bring anything you summoned, kind of a thing. And so the champion of the arena was a necromancer, because they would just kill their opponents, summon their bones, and because they summoned them in the arena, technically that counted as a summons, and so they were allowed to have like an army of like 15 skeletons on their team whenever they would fight. And they would trick out the skeletons with...
Keep going.
They would trick out the skeletons with medium armor and different kinds of swords and things like that. And it was just... the skeletons suddenly became much more daunting than normal, just pitiful, it died in one hit skeletons.
That's exactly the like one caution I would have is if you're going to start giving a skeleton heavy armor and a greatsword, you should take that into account with how much damage it can deal and how hard it will be to hit with things. Like your party might be a little worse at fighting it now. Just think about that as you're going through. But this is, I mean, that's all of the homebrew itself. Like that's it. It's just this table. You can roll for it or you can choose from it at your DM's discretion. But I think it's a good place to start for the idea of customizing monsters to fit your actual situations.
Yeah, and I think it has some really practical solutions for things like the fact that it says wands, undead were previously spellcasters, they might not, like that were previously spellcasters might not have arcane abilities, but it's cool to have skeletons that can cast spells, so the next best thing is just to give them a wand. Like, you know, as a DM, sometimes you want to do things that are cool, and it gets complicated because you're like, oh, but if they are dead, if they don't have a bot in them?
Do I want to give them all natural, like, inherent casting abilities?
But then there's often just very, very simple workarounds.
Yeah,
and just find the simple thing. It doesn't have to be a great wand. Maybe it's just a wand that just casts
magic missile.
Magic missile. That's all it does.
Yeah.
This gives me a very Dark Souls vibe, because one of the cool things about Dark Souls is mapped out dungeons and enemy variety in those specific situations, because the first couple of areas you run into something that would be considered a basic D&D skeleton. It's got a shield, it's got a sword, it just kind of swings at you. But then at certain points you start running through like towers with choke points, and there are skeleton archers up at the top of the towers, or all the way down this hallway there's a single skeleton spellcaster who's just constantly shooting those lasers at you, and you have to dodge to the other side of the hallway so it doesn't hit you.
Another thing we've talked about before that's great about this is using existing systems and rules for your homebrews. So, I mean, it's just like Bean was talking about, where it would get so complicated potentially for you to be like, well, how do I make a magic skeleton? And then now there's so much that you're trying to build from the ground up, whereas you could just say skeleton plus these wizard abilities and these spells, and now like you've homebrewed something that's exciting and new and different and that your party hasn't seen before, but you weren't building it from nothing. And it'll be so much easier for you, and also it'll be easier to work with for your players. Not easier as in easier to beat, but less frustrating because it will make sense.
I think this is a great place to begin thinking about how you treat monsters in your games, or how your DM treats monsters in your games. And like the goblin in the monster manual is a template for the generic goblin, just as much as if you Googled the word human, it comes up with a diagram of what humans are, but every human is different from each other. And you as like the DM have the complete freedom to say, this camp of goblins is slightly different from other goblins. Like their tribe is focused in archery their whole lives. so these goblins all have bows. That's slightly different. And that can always inform unique encounters where you can feel like instead of just getting a copy-pasted goblin that is just the same as every goblin you've ever fought, you can fight people that feel unique without having to rewrite monsters from the ground up and homebrew entirely new things.
Well, I think one of the things that is great about, I mean, thinking differently in D&D in general, but like homebrew specifically, is that as a DM, if you bring in homebrew kinds of things, or I mean, as a player, if you talk to your DM, and bring in homebrew stuff, it forces your players to think outside the box, especially for a lot of players that maybe have been playing the game for a long time and are so set in their ways. Bringing in something homebrew and having them be like, but you know, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad way for people to play, but homebrew is a great way of like shaking things up and reminding your players like things aren't always going to be the same every time. And homebrew doesn't necessarily mean penguin playable races, although it can and should.
As we've all decided, it should be the new standard in D&D 6th edition.
Yeah, they should get rid of humans in the next book and just have the base race be playing penguins.
Humans are played out at this point. Like, we've all been a human. Who's been a penguin, though? That's what we need in this world.
Y'all are being sarcastic, but I'm serious. But even just having slightly homebrew different things of, this is how a skeleton is a little bit different than a normal skeleton, will remind your players to think outside the box and come up with new ideas and always second guess things.
Because like at a certain point too, as a DM, you run into the problem of all of my players have memorized the monster manual. So if I throw at them at this issue, they will know exactly how to handle it. And I am one who doesn't believe that metagaming should be entirely shut down, because we can talk about that later, but player knowledge is impossible to separate from character knowledge.
Totally.
So at a certain point, you just need to roll with it. But like things like this skeleton has breastplate armor and has a long bow, and his arrows are all tipped in poison. That introduces enough of a change in the narrative that maybe they'll be expecting something different. In an example of something similar to this, I often in my campaigns have what I call the legendary owlbear Morhu, as a reference to what's his name? Mordu, yeah. Based.
That's from Brave.
Yeah, based on the legendary giant bear sung about in Brave.
Squirrel will hear it.
Anyways, but my joke whenever anybody asks me about it is there is always a Morhu. At one point, any party member will run into this angry giant battle-scarred owlbear that just has maximum hit points. It has barbarian class abilities and things like that.
Magical resistance.
Yes, it has legendary actions.
It has legendary actions.
It's a legendary creature.
It is a nightmare to fight.
Yeah.
Unless you completely outnumber it.
The only thing that I would counsel for DMs is be aware that if you're like, haha, they've never fought a goblin with adamantine armor and a sunblade before. If they kill him, they now have adamantine armor and a sunblade.
Yes,
and you need to be embracing that. And like whatever you give them, if they defeat that guy that you thought, they'll never be able to beat this guy, he's too strong. If they do get it, they get all his stuff, and that can be, you're going to have to change how you run that game. So that's what I liked about it. I liked that it sparked my thoughts on how to change monsters for situations, but without going too far as to say, well, roll on this table to see what draconic ancestry these skeletons have. It's just simple. It's just what skill proficiencies or tool proficiencies might they have had from their lives, which gives enough flavor without having to rebalance the entire game.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. Okay, so Onog, what have you brought today?
Have you ever wanted to look at a horde of goblins and unironically shout, "The laws of time are mine"? Well, now you can.
I have.
We have the Temporal Sorcerer Magic Origin.
Okay.
This is a...
so you're just like a really moody sorcerer.
You're a
you're a very, very temperamental sorcerer. That's a different subclass.
You're working for college credit.
Yes. Oh, yeah. You're a temp sorcerer.
You're a temp sorcerer.
No. So what this is this is a magical origin. Temporally independent is one of the abilities. Temporal sorceries are those who have the ability to manipulate time.
Okay, time magic.
Through a magical mishap or the touch of a powerful god, your core link to the timeline has begun to fray.
Will it bother you that that's not actually what a temp is? That's
You
an
think-
intern. A temp is like a...
Oh.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Too late.
Okay.
Joke happened. Move on.
I'll just put up in text, that's not what a temp is. That's an
Okay.
intern.
Yeah.
Temporal sorcerers are those who have the ability to manipulate time. Through a magical mishap with the touch of a powerful god, your core link to the timeline has begun to fray. This manifests itself in several abilities as you learn to control it. So, there are a few abilities you get. Most of them, from what I've seen, seem to be tied to your sorcery points, which you can use for your meta magics, and in this one particularly with your temporal sorcerer abilities. So, the first ability you get two starting at level 1 when you choose this magic origin. Mild acceleration, which are two weird words to be put next to each other. But starting at first level, short and long rests that you take consume only 50% of the time they normally would.
Whoa.
Any items or other effects that must be focused on during a rest are completed over this time. And all abilities normally regained in that kind of rest are regained as if you had completed the full duration of the rest.
Interesting.
So if you're a human, your normal 8-hour long rest turns into a 4-hour long rest. So you kind of gain the same ability as elves. And your hour-long short rests become half hours.
Yeah.
Interesting thing, if you are an elf now, your 4-hour long rest turns into 2 hours.
I'm so lonely at night.
Yeah, you're just boom, boom. You
I
just
guess I'll just be the night watch every
meditate
night.
for 2 hours. Yeah.
I mean, some of us
Does
do
it
have
say-
insomnia. And
I'm
feel like
always
that.
confused about that. Does it say that you still have to do the full 8 hours, but only 4 of it has to be meditating?
Yeah.
Like, it's
That's
weird.
That's
but
one
you
of
have
the
YouTube.
okay. So
Yeah.
we're gonna go on a little magical tangents called the rules for long rest don't make sense.
Maybe we can just do that as a side
That's
quest.
going to be
instead.
its own side quest.
How
Yeah,
about,
but
how about we finish
Yeah.
learning about
But,
the,
so,
the
let's
temporal
finish the
for
quest.
for my interpretation of how long work should work,
Long rest should work.
whatever.
Yeah.
My interpretation for how long rest should work, that is what this means.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay. Sounds good. We'll do a rests side quest.
Yeah, we are definitely
A
going
side rest.
It will just be us sleeping.
I was gonna say, is it just us taking a nap?
It's a nap time
Yeah.
ASMR.
I love that.
What's the next ability?
I
don't know.
need a nap.
Blink. Starting at first level, you learn to manipulate your timeline in odd ways. By using 2 sorcery points, you may dash as a bonus action. While moving this way, you don't provoke attacks of opportunity and are considered under the effect of the spider climb and water walk spells.
Whoa!
Question. Why doesn't this ability include the blink spell?
You're not wrong.
Why
So-
is this called blink and has nothing to do with the blink spell?
Well, because from what I understand, it is the blink spell is one of those spells that I think it was misnamed because it was just a carryover from different abilities from previous editions. But this is very similar to just someone teleporting.
Yeah, the idea is that in a blink of an eye, you've gone
You
from
got-
there.
No,
yeah.
I like that. It's just like weird that like you would name an ability Fireball and you're like,
But
When
it
you- when you
doesn't
take the
cast
fi-
the spell
when you t-
Fireball.
when you take the Fireball ability, you are now able to cast Magic Missile twice per long rest. You're like, why? That's not even related in any way to Fireball.
Yeah, this is kind of my first real kind of criticism of this.
Okay.
It's because they seem to be going a very roundabout way to say you can teleport 30 feet as a bonus
Yeah.
action. Because you can run across water, you can climb straight up walls, so why not just say you can teleport 30 feet?
Well-
that simplifies the
It does.
wording, that really kind of solves the issue there.
I think I wonder if what happened is they wanted to make an ability that says essentially like time slows down around you so you can do more, but that's way more complicated than just saying like you can dash.
I like
You know?
I like the flavor of it because
is-
like
it is
run
very
up the
cool.
walls, run across water.
But when you look at it kind of just in you don't take opportunity attacks, so it's like you're teleporting.
Yeah. I think it's supposed to elicit the Quicksilver scene in X-Men.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Where
picturing.
you just
whatever one.
dash out.
Where he walks around the walls in slow motion while everyone else is kind of frozen
Days
for a
of
second.
Future Past.
Days of Future Past, yeah. I think it's supposed to represent that idea because you're dashing as a bonus action, meaning you're doing it theoretically in a much shorter amount of time than other people can.
Yeah.
So you're moving so fast that you can run on water.
Because the point is, you're not teleporting; you are moving fast.
Yeah.
I think there is a difference.
Well, and that's kind of the
Fair.
confusion about the
think
title
calling
of
it
the
Blink
ability.
makes it-
Blink.
Exactly.
It
That's
should
the
be
problem.
called Quicksilver.
It should be called like blink of an eye or something. Like that would be fun. Yeah.
That would work.
Like because you're moving there in the blink of an eye, but you're not literally teleporting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that.
So yeah. So next, we get the ability Rewind. Starting at 6th level, you may use your reaction when hit by an attack or an action on your turn, as well as 4 sorcery points to rewind your personal timeline. You are not hit by the triggering attack. You return to wherever you were 5 rounds ago,
Oh no!
Whoa.
and return
How do you
to
track
the health
that?
you had on that turn.
I don't know.
This
That's
does
legitimately hard to keep track of.
that. Yeah, I don't think like we've played some high level campaigns, and I can't think of a single combat that lasted more than 2 rounds.
I don't know why that doesn't say you return to wherever you were at the beginning of your last
Yeah.
turn.
Additionally, I forgot to mention the author of this.
Oh.
And as we are about to criticize it a little more, I thought I should bring that up. This is made by, I think it's a Tumblr user, Mega Pisces 617.
Okay.
So you can edit that in wherever you
Sure.
want.
I thought you were gonna say before we really rip into this. I want you all to know this was made by a one-legged orphan with pneumonia, so you cannot be that mean to them.
Yeah.
Like,
But,
oh, I feel so bad.
So I mean, I like the ability at its bones, where it's just you're able to like Prince of Persia, Sands of Time, go, just not that didn't happen. I undid that.
Just
That's
kidding.
what we should rename Blink to.
Sands of Time, Prince
No,
of Persia.
the sound.
Just like ZHGHZ.
You know what bothers me a teeny tiny bit is the anachronism of the word rewind. Because it comes from VHS and like audio cassettes.
Like you would not need to. What does rewounding something mean?
Yeah.
What did you wind up?
I mean,
yeah.
Maybe a watch?
Yeah.
You do wind watches.
So if you're going to be playing in a clockwork world, maybe that makes sense. But it would feel weird to me to be like, you have the fast forward ability. But it's like, that's a modern term. And
Yeah.
it bothers me when
I
it
will
clashes
say-
with the
And
setting.
how many times do you need to wind a whiny watch?
What?
With which?
Okay.
Never mind.
All right, okay.
Oh, you're mad at me for puns?
Yeah, no, that was...
I was trying to do a tongue twister. That's different. It requires skill.
I see.
Which you clearly lacked.
Everyone
anyways.
is smashing each other tonight.
This house is full of hate.
I will say though, in a lot of lore and religion, like if you think about ancient Greek, like it's not quite the same way, but like the strings of fate of your life unraveling as it goes, to say that you rewind those, like
Yeah, but they don't... I'm just saying that the
Yeah.
term wind is a modernized...
Yeah.
it is.
term. But if you could have like tried to find a cool, flavorful way to tie it into the idea of like the weave of life and like the what's
String
it called, the
theory.
loom,
Yeah.
like the loom of fate, and being like unwind or
Yeah.
Forewind.
forewind.
Unwind and forewind.
Yeah, I don't know. Like
It honestly though, all of those would still be sort of
Unweave.
confusing because you'd have to like think about how to like tie
Yeah.
it in. I get that. Like, what do you call
You
it?
just
It's
you
hard,
just
yeah.
call one ability backing up.
back that up.
It's just
and
called
It's-
going back
It's
a bit.
it's called no takebacks, but actually I get takebacks. Yes, I do.
I think this ability should just be called "You're Too Slow."
You're too
There it
slow.
But and
The
additionally
first
too,
one was gotta go fast. This is a
so-
better Sonic than we reviewed.
this is already a better song.
This is already a better Sonic.
But anyways, so as we continue, you return to wherever you were 5 rounds ago and return to the health you had on that turn. So presumably perfectly healthy because no combat ever has lasted 5 rounds.
Yeah.
This does not change anything else about your character. No regained spell slots, no erased memories, etc. If a creature occupies the space you would return to, they take 1d4 bludgeoning damage and are shunted into the nearest unoccupied space.
They do. You don't?
Yeah, you just go zoop,
You
and
just get for free.
and you just bop them out of the way.
That's my spot.
So it's kind and it is
Well, I
for
mean, you're the one moving faster.
yeah.
I know physics. I
But
don't.
now
I
this
reject your reality.
that being said,
Substitute
this
my own.
is 4 sorcery points and your reaction. So
Yeah.
I could see that like you'd get some marginal damage, and what this really is, this is a healing ability for a sorcerer,
Yeah.
which is very interesting and unique way of looking at it.
That's fair.
But that's what it is. Basically, the only thing that actually changes is your health goes back up.
Yeah.
You restart at the beginning of the fight. I presume you can only at 6th level you can only do this once per long rest. And you can't do it twice until you get to 8th level, and then you're not using your sorcery points for anything else. So it's not that
It's a big,
big of a deal. But additionally, too, it seems to be kind of trying to replicate one of the alternative uses of Wish, which is as opposed to this 9th level spell. One of the primary use of Wish is you can replicate any 8th level spell or lower as an action without material components instantaneously, even if you don't know it on your spell list. But there are alternative rules that are given, and one of the alternative rules is you can remake the sands of time basically to undo a single mistake or things like that. And this seems to be kind of more localized to you in specifically receiving an attack, so it's not as powerful as the Wish, but it seems to be trying to replicate that.
I get it.
And trying to do that, but it's still kind of, it's still like both too much and not enough at the same time.
Yeah. I wish that it, instead of doing all of these things, like just required a little bit more creativity in how you like interpreted it, but just used pretty normal mechanics. Like it said, like when you get like when an attack roll is made against you as your reaction, like if you use your 4 sorcery points, you can cast shield on yourself, counterspell the ability.
Like you just
being
time
used.
bubble or something.
Well, yeah, like you essentially just like you get like a couple of spells all happen at once. So you cast shield on yourself, you can have an opportunity to counterspell the ability, and you misty step away. So it's just like you get the option to sort of do this, but through normal spells that already exist, instead of trying to find a way to be like,
Maybe.
you teleport back 5 rounds and regain your health.
And
But a
it's
way
like,
that would flavorfully represent, like, I'm suddenly impossible to hit and your spell didn't hit me and I'm back where I started.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple more abilities on this, right?
Yeah, there are a few. They all seem to just kind of correlate to making these other abilities a bit more streamlined or more powerful. So starting at 14th level, you learn to integrate your alteration of time more effectively into your combat prowess. Whenever you use blink or rewind, the abilities, not the spell, you may cast a cantrip as part of the ability, either from your starting or ending location. Now, interestingly enough, it says starting at 18th level, you can cast a 1st level spell in this way instead of a cantrip. This spell is cast as normal. Now, this is kind of a little bit of a needs a little more playtesting, I think.
Yeah.
Because at 14th level, cantrips are easily more powerful than any damaging first level spell ever would be.
Yeah.
Especially if you're only allowed to cast it at a 1st level, especially at 18th level. By then, like, the firebolt is doing like 4d10 damage or something like that. And the best you could do is cast chromatic orb,
Yeah.
which is like
that was
2
good.
3d8.
That was
And
just
so-
someone not thinking about how
Yeah.
the cantrips scale.
But
Yeah.
that being said, you could cast other 1st level spells like detect magic or shield
non-damaging spells. Yeah.
or mage armor or something like that. So when someone goes to hit you and you go, oops, rewind, whoop, mage armor's up now. Like that's not that bad.
Sure.
It doesn't say whether or not it expends the spell slot, but I guess this spell is cast as normal, kind of covers that. So
Yeah.
I would assume it expends the spell slot. Now, also at 18th level, you get Total Disconnect. You learn to totally sever your link to the timeline in a safe way. Once per long rest, you may cast the Time Stop spell. While under its effects, you may use your Blink and Rewind abilities for 1/2 of their normal cost.
Sorcerer.
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 I assume that's
Yeah.
their normal cost of sorcery
Sorcerer
points.
points. Yeah, sure.
So it starts off with these interesting ideas, and then as it continues, it's just, and those interesting ideas get better and more efficient, which is a little disappointing, especially at top tier level stuff. There's already kind of an issue with sorcerers in the first place, where their capstone abilities or their level 20 or their upper level abilities aren't quite that impressive. So a lot of sorcerers kind of need to multi-class if they want to get more bang for their buck, kind of a thing.
That's why you see so many warlock sorcerers.
Sorlocks, things like that.
Yeah.
Even paladin sorcerers I've seen.
Paladin sorcerers.
Where it's because those upper level sorcerer abilities aren't that good, it's actually better for them to multi-class to get the front loaded abilities of another class that also uses the same casting ability, like charisma.
Yep.
And so this kind of it like rapid action and total disconnect, unless I'm staying for another ability, that doesn't really incentivize me to want to continue being a temporal sorcerer.
Yeah.
I'm probably, at level 13, I'm probably just going to go be more of a warlock or something like that.
Yeah.
I will say I love the idea behind everything that this is. It's a cool way of uniting abilities that might not have a thematic connection.
Yeah.
I mean, this is way back, but with the Cloak of the Rat, that was an object that I brought. It was a way of saying, like, well, all of these things wouldn't normally go together, but if you theme it as a rat, then they do kind of work.
Definitely.
So I love this, like, mild acceleration. Maybe in a barbarian class, you might think, like, I'm literally so strong that I can power through and I don't need to sleep as much. Or blink, like, yeah, I can teleport, I can do whatever, rewind, all these other things. But instead of saying, like, oh, I'm super strong, or I am really good at these other kinds of things, by saying, I just manipulate time. That is in my opinion, a really cool way of incorporating, you don't sleep better, you just sort of sleep faster because time is weird. And so I think that the idea behind it is really, really dope, and I think it's a great way of bringing lots of abilities that maybe you wouldn't normally have in the same character. I do agree, though, that it needs to be efficientized.
It needs to be
more efficient?
it needs to be ironed out. How's that?
No,
Trimmed down.
I efficientized it by not having to use lots of words.
You officialized it?
she got
You
there,
made it
she got
official.
there.
I'm efficient. It is officialized.
Why
now.
use lots of words when small word do trick? The office?
Why?
Yeah.
See, that was just the letter for yes, because why even bother
There you go.
with the full word?
But yeah, like this starts at an interesting place.
Yeah, I think that this is a good starting place to then brainstorm off of that theme, because as we were reading this, I was thinking about, like, well, what are other kind of, like, rewind abilities that you could look at doing where it's flavored as, like, you went back and now you're, like, doing something again. And I was like, well, there are already in D&D abilities that let you re-roll dice. And so what if it was like, kind of foresight
Lucky
abilities
feet.
let you do that. So what if it was like sometimes when you fail a check, you can essentially go back in time 6 seconds and do it again with advantage because now you've seen it and you're going back in time to do it again.
I already seen it.
And this is a good example of taking abilities and different skills and things like that have a precedent for already existing in the game. And, like, for instance, you're describing a fighter ability. They have the ability, if they fail a save, they can just go, I'm gonna do that again. And so and it's kind of what Bean was talking about. You can take these kind of disparate
works,
yeah, you can take these, like, disparate abilities that don't really relate to each other, but if it's themed like, oh, I'm going back in time to try and dodge that arrow trap just 6 seconds, and then it allows you to remedy your mistake, that's a cool flavoring, and it's a powerful, useful ability. And, if it's all tied into sorcery points, maybe we're putting a little bit too much strain at a certain point on your sorcery points, but giving that using that class resource in ways that haven't been used before.
Yeah, I'd like it. I think I think I would like it more if it more directly tied into like literally tied into those concepts, as opposed to trying to sort of like build them from the ground up. They just used spells like slow time, or they used abilities that already exist, and they kind of tacked those together in a way that made sense. I think I would like it a lot more, because some of this, the formatting or the how they thought through some of these abilities ends up being a little either hard to understand or hard to see how it relates. But it is like we've been saying, it's good at its core of a concept. I love the idea of your sorcerer friend who sometimes like zips around the room going way fast, but other times you look and they're pouring water into their mouth and it's going very slow because they're stuck in like a slow moment and they are unlocked from the flow of time themselves. So sometimes they like age 10 years randomly. Like,
yeah.
I just lived 10 years and no one else noticed.
You all died.
Yeah, like,
things
that'd be
like
crazy. That. Like, that'd be really
But
good
yeah.
stuff.
But like talking about like using abilities that already exist, I immediately thought while you were talking about that, using kind of reflavoring the mirror image spell.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
Where it's like you are moving so fast it looks like you're in 4 places at once.
Have you seen the Nicolas Cage film Next?
Yeah, that's honestly one of my favorite Nicolas Cage movies. Yeah, and so that could be like a way to reflavor, like mirror. You can cast mirror image on yourself when you use this ability, you know, for free or something like that. You don't, or just something simple as you already know the mirror image spell.
Yeah. Adding some things to your spell list would be cool, I think,
Yeah,
as a
that's
sorcerer.
Interestingly enough, that's something where Dungeons and Dragons official kind of almost refuses to go.
They really shy away from
They
it.
really don't like giving sorcerers free spells, and that would just make it so much easier to be a sorcerer.
Yeah.
I know this, having made a few sorcerer characters, and it's just
Rough.
it's agony. It's like giving away some of your children, where it's just like, oh, I really like Fireball. That's a very classic, pyromancer spell. But haste just works better for what I need to do as a party member, kind of a
I
thing.
just
Every
can't have
time
it.
I've tried to make a sorcerer, I've said screw it and made a wizard.
Yeah.
Like halfway through my
have a
character
spell book.
creation. Yeah.
And just simply having those, like, maybe every tier level or level of spell you get a free spell. Like they are handing out free spells to everyone. Paladins, clerics, wizards.
Look, as a lore bard myself, I don't think that that's true. I think we fought for those spells, okay?
You
That
stole
was-
those magical
That was
secrets.
not free. I worked for that.
But yeah, and then just sorcerers are just like, oh yeah, you don't really get extra.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to deal with what you have, and then if you made the wrong choice, you have to live with it for a whole level until you can fix it. So it's just one of those things, and like maybe having like temporal based spells, like the spell blink or mirror image or
Slow time.
yeah, well, slow time would probably be a much more top tier one, but
Yeah,
but you just
eventually.
learn these automatically, and you don't need to take them to try and reflavor yourself and take up precious spell slots. You kind of intrinsically know these abilities, and then you can do other normal sorcery things outside of it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Definitely. All right, thanks, Onog. And Bean, what have you got today?
Okay, so this is a little bit of this was almost, I guess, a meme really before memes were a thing. It's a little bit of an older thing. I have brought...
The old magics.
Oh, do not speak to me of the old magic.
Donuts speak to me.
A lot of donuts have spoken to me about the old magic.
You're having a hard day.
What do they say as you eat them?
Mostly, please no. Please stop. Oh no. God's in heaven, please.
All right.
Do they say...
all right.
On the vein of, oh no, please help me, I just opened up the link.
Yeah, so this is Chuck Norris.
Oh no.
A monster.
A monster. Like not necessarily a monster, but like for you to fight.
Yeah, a stat block.
An
for
encounter.
A
for
Chuck
you to
Norris.
fight. Chuck Norris. He's a medium celestial human. He is lawful neutral. Armor class. 20 beard and Texas Ranger badge.
Okay, no, it's fine. Move on.
Tex says, it isn't the word Texas. It's
fine,
Texas.
it's fine.
By the way,
it's fine.
this, I forgot to say, this was made by Jeff Zero.
Jeff, I love you.
The zero with Jeff.
I love you, Jeff, but come on, buddy.
Hit points 1,000 or 200 d20.
That's a lot of variation.
That's how hit points work.
Speed 50 feet, climb 50 feet, walk 50 feet, burrow 50 feet.
Burrow.
He has to burrow feet first. That's just the image that
He just
immediately
spins.
pops. He just goes and
Okay.
like Bugs Bunny.
Okay, strength 30, dexterity 30, constitution 30, intelligence 30, wisdom 30, charisma 30, saving throws 19s across the board. Skills, survival plus 700.
What does that even mean? That doesn't mean anything in this game.
This also doesn't make any sense because it says true sight 500?
Feet.
I guess feet, but like it.
Yes, true sight up to 500
But then
feet.
it also says passive perception 300. Like, does that mean plus 300? Here's the thing: this is not.
This isn't right.
Languages all.
All.
He speaks the all.
He's only challenge rating 30. We have reviewed challenge rating 30 monsters.
They are much weaker than this.
He should be challenge rating 1,000.
Yeah. Multi-attack. Chuck Norris can make 1 roundhouse kick and 2 punches.
Oh, that's it. He can only kill 3 things at once. Don't worry about it.
So then there's some more, and it just says like reactions. He uses roundhouse kick.
There's not even capitalization.
No, there's not. Okay.
Jeff!
So
Wait, he only has... Wait.
Okay.
He has a plus 10 to strength. His roundhouse kick attack action only has a plus 5 to hit. He is negatively 5 proficient in his own signature move.
Got a plus 5.
So here's the thing, guys. This is a good laugh.
It's a joke, and
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah,
No, I get it.
it's great. It's way, but it's not even properly overpowered. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna overpower
Chuck
something,
Norris is a mortal god.
Yes.
His
Description.
reactions are roundhouse kick.
he
uses
does
it.
one.
He does it.
So
roundhouse.
let's look at something much better,
Okay.
way better written.
Okay, let's change up over there.
way
I'm
less
sorry, the
overpowered.
Zeroth Jeff.
God Norris form only?
Yeah.
He has a god form?
Don't worry about it. It's
But
fine.
it doesn't
So-
mean anything.
It's fine. We're moving
amazing.
on from that. I mostly just wanted to share that for a laugh.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to enjoy that moment.
We ragged on that, but I love you, Jeff.
It's so
No,
great.
I actually
Come
really
on.
enjoyed that.
So instead, let's look at something much more reasonable: a swarm of Tiamats.
Oh, of Tiamats, you
Oh,
say.
that's so much.
Tiamat, the devil of the
Chromatic dragons.
of the chromatic dragons,
Mhm.
the deific like evil. Okay.
Wait. I just read the top thing, and it's a gargantuan swarm of gargantuan dragons.
Yes.
What?
So
They're all very close.
they're all
They're hugging.
very
They've all
snuggly.
clipped.
They've all clipped. It's just you put the place object button, but you hit it a couple too many times, and they're all on top of each other, occupying the same space.
But can Tiamat make a swarm of Tiamats? Even Tiamat can't be inside them.
No. If you put another Tiamat inside another Tiamat, it just spits it out.
No, if you put a Tiamat inside another Tiamat, it collapses the universe like a bag of holding.
So this was made by Lord Fat Labrador.
Ooh.
Description is this is way at the bottom. Lore breaker, yes. Adventure destroying, certainly. A swarm of 10 Tiamats.
Oh, I'm glad there's 10 of them.
Yeah. I mean, basically what we get with Swarm of Tiamats is just the same as everything as a Tiamat has, but just sort of times 10.
Times 10.
And it's as a swarm. It doesn't even really have a lot of the same swarm abilities. It's obviously just something that someone did for fun. We possibly have the theory that it's...
I'm curious, how many legendary actions does it get?
How many legendary actions?
Go all the way down, yeah.
Yes. The swarm can take 50 legendary actions.
There you go. That's a dead party right there. That by itself, you can just go acid breath, acid breath, acid breath, acid breath,
I mean,
30
times.
turns in a row.
I mean, the whole point of it, I just brought 2 things that
Yeah,
it's
to
just...
be ridiculous.
They're just fun to be ridiculous, and I guess you could bring them into a party if you wanted to, but they're more just kind of fun to read and laugh about.
Totally.
And
I
so-
do like to think that your game just broke and you went into the dungeon and it accidentally spawned the boss 10 times in the same space.
You just accidentally got
But-
into console commands.
But that means that, like, when the boss takes its, like, fire breath move, it does it 10 times.
It's like in Skyrim, you just do the console
Yeah.
command for spawning 100 Parthenax. And
Yeah.
You're just like, all right, here we go, boys. Not that you should ever
I
kill
like to think
Parthenax,
that-
you monster.
I
Yeah,
like to-
killing Parthenax is a sin, and anyone who has done that is
A heretic.
less of a person.
Yeah.
I like to think that all the bodies like are generally in the same spot, but as the limbs move around and the heads move around, that's the only thing that kind of ripples out from each other.
You are dropping frames like crazy.
Should we
let me tell
allow
ya.
the bodies to contact the ground?
I am interested to see how a party of were-Turesks would handle 10 Tiamats.
I think
We gotta do the numbers. Gotta run the numbers.
Here's my idea for a pitch. Your campaign, you say, we're not doing regular character creation, boys. Today, we're doing something different. Come with nothing. Everyone shows up for your campaign day. You have a hat with a bunch of stuff in it. Everyone picks one out. What you're doing is you're doing Saturday morning kaiju fights. Every person is playing like you are a Tarask, and you take the Tarask's turn.
Oh.
You are Tiamat, and you take Tiamat's turn. You're
You
Chuck
are a
Norris.
lich. You know?
You are
And,
like
and it's just battle
you're
royale.
Godzilla.
yeah,
you know.
you're Godzilla, you're Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight. Like you get all these ridiculous like homebrews people have made for these over the top, either hyper powerful or like monster creatures, and then you just battle royale each other.
You just smash those toys
but
against
then-
each other and see which
Yeah.
comes out
But
intact.
then every now and then you just have to have a pillaging day where you're like, yeah, I really need to re-up my supplies, so like I need to go find a town
I
and
need to
like
go eat some
burn it
townspeople
down.
real quick.
And everyone's like, I hate
Throw
pillaging.
some screaming people.
I hate pillaging days. Can't we just like go back to fighting?
Or you as the DM, you are like you're gonna be fighting, you know, a Tiamat and a were-Tarask and all these crazy things.
And a
But-
Beelzebub.
But I'm giving you guys a Pacific Rim style Voltron robot to pilot. And you are all piloting like an
Now you're just-
adamantine golem, and you guys are gonna fight like the monsters.
You are literally describing the campaign of Acquisitions Incorporated from Penny Arcade.
Did they do that?
At one point, they are in the maze of like a mad wizard or something, and they find out the entire maze is just a giant mech designed to fight a Tarask, and they each control a
gosh,
limb and a
that's
different
amazing.
ability.
I love it.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun.
That's what I think a Swarm of Tiamats would be perfect for. You
It's
just you give your group power armor. Every character has their own mech, and they're all going in Pacific Rim style. Da-da-dun, da-da-dun, dun, dun. And then they're like their sword comes out of their arm. They cut the guy. They pick up a building as a baseball bat. Just all the classic stuff.
Nice. You'd have to
I'm
be
gonna need to put
skilled in improvised weapons, I would feel.
I'm gonna need to put in that clip of the like rubber suit Godzilla guy like eating a tree. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah,
clip?
it's where he's just shoving it.
That's great.
You know, thinking about this as being like a Skyrim glitch where they've all just appeared, now I'm just like disappointed that I haven't seen the homebrew yet that's like titled like extra super mega special edition, and it's like this is a story homebrew campaign. As it starts out, you're in the back of a wagon. You don't know where you're going. There's a guy in there it's just Skyrim again, but like you play the campaign like
No.
in D&D.
What if you just ran Skyrim as a campaign for your D&D
Yeah,
group,
exactly.
but without telling them you were going to?
Yeah, no, it would have
You all
to be
wake
a
up in the back of a
surprise.
wagon.
For some reason, I'm so unmotivated to keep going down the DM story. I keep wanting to do these side quests.
I mean,
No, but the lighting looks better than it does
Yeah, in your
deja vu memories
imagination,
of this.
it looks better than an old Skyrim from
There's
2000.
much
Oh,
better
okay.
contrast.
Yeah.
now.
Am I still railroaded down certain quest lines where there are
Oh,
no
yes.
choice whatsoever?
100%.
Okay.
But what we're
yes.
saying is that Todd Howard has re-released Skyrim for your
For D&D,
imagination.
yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We
is
are now
I want-
coming inside of your own mind with this game.
the D&D edition.
It's like the worst D&D campaign because you're like, okay, well, I want to like take down the Thieves Guild from the inside. DM, I'm sorry, you can't do that.
You're not allowed to
You're like,
do
that's not how D&D works. I can
Those
do. No,
characters,
you can't do that.
Those characters cannot die.
I have marked them as essential. What does that mean? Try and kill them.
I have marked.
Oh, I guess you didn't do damage to them. That's not how this game works, but it is now.
It is now. It's the first chapter.
And now that you've attacked them, they will hate you forever and keep trying to kill you until you die.
You don't understand, guys. Characters marked as essential in a D&D campaign are all just swarms of that same character.
Just
all in the
behind
same
each
spot.
other.
And so when you kill one of them, it doesn't look like it died because the swarm is just
Yeah.
still there.
You just have to keep going.
What I thought you were going to say that this was like the super extended edition because all the DLC starts as soon as you start the game. So like it's level 1, you're in the river town known as like Tom's Wood or whatever, and you meet the local guy, the local blacksmith. He's got a quest for you. Oh, whoops! You just got a letter. The letter says vampires are attacking. You are the chosen heir to.
Oh, whoops! You got a letter from Falconry.
Oops! You got another letter. Oops! You got another letter. And all of these like high tier DLCs are now unlocked for you as level 1 characters. And you're like, uh-oh, these are happening right now, and we are not equipped.
Well, guys, here's an interesting idea that you're making me think of. So I really don't play video games, but I have watched all of you guys play video games, and my understanding is that the more, what are they called? The cheaty things that you put on.
Console commands? Mods.
The more mods that you put on, sometimes it makes the game better, but then sometimes they will like break the game.
Yeah.
What if you, as a DM, just had like a stack of homebrew things that they could choose from?
Oh, no.
But then the more that they added...
they have to pick a loading order?
you don't tell them that. You don't tell them that. And that some of them break the game and some of them don't. And the more that they have, the more like weird stuff starts to happen.
What if you pitch the game as a very normal run of D&D,
Yeah.
but it's secretly a super modded Skyrim, and they start noticing the details that have gone wrong?
Every once in a while, a living train drives by with a human face.
Like these like weird lighting glitches happen, and your character's like, huh? And then they start thinking, like, oh, are we in like a dream or something? I've done this in D&D before, where we've done like a dream campaign.
You realize everyone's face and neck is one shade lighter than their body.
Also, much higher detail.
Also, just the women are not really wearing clothes.
All of the women are so much hotter than the men. It's like we couldn't find a mod for
the women
men.
are much higher resolution than the men are for some reason, and they start noticing.
Why did you say resolution? Don't worry about it.
Oh no, sorry,
sort of
I didn't mean to say that. And then they realize we're in a super modded game, and the only way for them to win is to keep adding more mods in
to crash the game.
Crash, and then they're freed from this prison.
Or the only way to win is actually just finish the main quest line of Skyrim.
But everything else is trying to get you to not do that.
Because like the quest line is broken, so they have to find a way to glitch into it.
We've all been there.
That's so good.
It's like, oh, Esbern won't unlock the door. Well, I guess you better find a way in there.
Well, no, it's like I modded Esbern's house, and now he can't, like, his path doesn't
leave.
line up with the door anymore.
But then one of them realizes this, and they're like, okay, I try the console command for no clip, so I can pass through objects and fly. Yeah, you now can pass through solid objects, and you have the spell fly on you at all times.
You guys see as Tithtarin the Brave just disappears into the floor.
Just shoots through a wall.
You just mount a horse and then shoot 10 million miles like into space.
But then you accidentally hit the
descend.
enter key again, and then you fall to your death.
Or you try to then cast Fireball and like 20 cabbages just like appear in front of you.
Because that's what the Fireball spell does
Look,
now. It
it's
just
like-
summons cabbages.
It just like everything else is working, but
no.
I just
It's
can't
still-
stop making cabbage.
It still does the same amount of damage because of the physics engine.
You keep, every time you open a door, you hear the sound of unsheathing your weapons. No one's weapons are unsheathing. It's driving you mad.
You walk into a building and close the door, and it's like, oh, looks like your armor's invisible now. And you're like, what?
Why is my armor invisible?
It says it's still equipped. Yeah, it's invisible now.
Weird.
Or these people who claim to have been your friends are mad you're in their house, even though they let you sleep here all the time.
But see,
That's just a game.
you could do it as like they have to figure out they're in a modded Skyrim campaign. I wouldn't be able to do that, but nerds like you probably could.
Correct.
The
Definitely.
term is dweebs.
The term is bards.
But I think it could be a fun thing where you just play a normal campaign, but you like allow them. You're like,
You get
Within-
3 mods.
no, but like within you don't say it as mods.
Yeah.
Just like within reason, you can like look up any homebrew thing, or you have a binder of homebrew stuff that they can choose from. And the more and more they add it to it, the more it like begins to break
That's
the
cool.
world around them.
I like
But they could start doing that on purpose because
Uh-huh.
they're like, wait, the last time we did this. Like the last time we did, had these homebrew things together, for some reason I couldn't.
It turned my sword purple, and the legend speaks of a purple sword.
Yes, or it's like no one could wear hats, but the villain is using a
magical helm.
A helm of telepathy. So all we have to do is put those homebrews on, and then he won't be able to wear
and his hat will
the
disappear.
helm.
I
So
want to activate the homebrew. Okay, his hat disappears. Yes!
So this is actually, I think I might have mentioned this before. This kind of reminds me of a campaign that I was running that had a Kenku, kind of a mob boss character, who was, but eventually the party befriended this character, and he just loved dirty jokes. It was his favorite thing to do. And at a certain point, whenever any of the party members would tell a dirty joke, at any point they would just hear this Kenku going in the background, and that was just kind of a running gag. That just like, oh, this Kenku is following you and keeping tabs on you, and he's always watching you. And that at a certain point, they needed to contact him. So instead of sending someone to the underground to go find him, they just told a dirty joke, and they heard where he was laughing from and went there to talk to him.
And there he was, sitting on a rock.
So
just, "Hey, what's
basically, in real life, I implemented just an inside joke meme that it's just whenever you do this X action in the game, something laughs at you.
That's great.
You just turn around and see where it's laughing, and then go, "Oh, I needed to talk to you. Where can we get such and such drugs or something?"
Give your players a fun little Easter egg rule, and they will find a way to use it against you.
Yeah, they will find a way to abuse it as much as possible.
That's what the game's built on.
Anyway, I just think that doing a campaign like that could not only be fun just for laughs, but also it could be fun because it might be a fun way of reminding players that rules are there for a reason, and you shouldn't just because you always. And now, you should think outside the box when you play, but you always get players that are like, I mean, but technically, if I do this thing, because if I send my familiar to, and they're just always trying to cheat the system.
Yeah.
But now, roundabout thinking is great, but trying to just cheat and break the rules just to make your life easier, that's not cool. So this could be perhaps a fun thing to do for a campaign in which characters are doing that too much, and you just start allowing them to do that. But
every time they
And
do
its
it, they start
consequences.
breaking the world.
it breaks the world.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we'll call it for tonight. Thanks for bringing that bean.
Yeah. I'm glad that I taught us nothing.
You taught us many things.
We've learned no lessons from this.
We're glad that you could all be here while we created our own homebrew Skyrim campaign. Let us know how it goes when you implement it in all of your games, as I'm sure you will.
Every game going forwards has to be that now.
Yes, absolutely. It's a law. So, as always, if you have any homebrews that you want us to review that you think are interesting or you've made any yourself, feel free to comment them below or to email them to thecopperfoxinn@gmail.com, and we would love to take a look at those. And we'll talk to you guys next week.